Joining us now on the line is Joe DiGenova, our legal analyst. And Joe, last week when you were with us, you made a little bit of news because you told us that your sources were telling you that one of the reasons the administration was so concerned about what happened in Benghazi and may have been trying to fuzz up the story about what was going on there is that at the annex in Benghazi, they were collecting surface-to-air missiles, trying to get them out of Libya. Somebody was. And that perhaps during the attack on the annex, Al-Qaeda and some other very bad people got their hands on some of these surface-to-air missiles that can, let's just be honest about it, take down a jetliner.
Yes. Well, Brian and Larry, good morning. And what was very interesting about last week was there was not a single denial from any U.S. governmental source.
I know.
DOD, DOS, CIA, etc. And, of course, this is all part of an evolving story about Benghazi and why it is, in fact, a scandal of immense proportions, which the mainstream media, although it has tried to ignore, simply can't get away from because it won't go away. There's going to be more information coming about all aspects of this, and it just isn't going to go away because this, in fact, is Hillary Clinton's legacy, chaos. When you look at what the Clinton doctrine is, the Clinton doctrine is chaos, and this chaos is going to continue. And if she's serious about running for president, this issue is not going to go away.
So
and that's because it can't.
You say there's more to be coming out of this.
Yes, there is more.
You need to. Can you help us with a little guidance on what these things might be?
Let's put it this way, Larry. We want to be careful about what we put out. When I say something, it's because we know it. WMAL has been at the front of this story, beginning at the very beginning when, as you know, we told you about the fact that there were troops available in Croatia who could have gone to Benghazi in less than an hour and a half, fully armed, fully loaded, fully supported, fully fueled. But they were told they were never used, and everybody else was told to, as we now know, stand still, not stand down, stand still. We'll have some more things for you, and some of it, regrettably, is going to involve illegal activities in the United States, domestic activities, which have nothing to do with foreign implementation of any orders of any finding by a United States president. But let's make sure we have, we're not going to say or do anything until we have all of our facts straight on those.
All right.
Joe DiGenova, you're a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, of course, and, this whole stop and frisk law is in the news. Mayor Bloomberg of New York has an editorial in the Washington Post today. I see this story as one of those vexing ones for conservatives, I think, because part of them want to be tough on crime and they want to keep our streets safe. But, we love our Bill of Rights. We love all our amendments, not just the Second Amendment. And there is a major question here about the police state, about the government being able to just stop people randomly on the street and ask them to empty their pockets. Where do you stand on this based on what you know?
Well, from what I know and from what I have read, the judge's decision is really flawed, just tremendously flawed. She goes through Nijinsky's to try to get to a result. And what she basically does is she says that there really weren't big violations here, but there are possible violations that might lead to what she calls indirect racial profiling. What she means by that is that 90% of those stopped are black, Hispanic, and minorities. And that's because 90% of the crime is committed by black, Hispanics, and minorities in those neighborhoods, and 90% of the victims are black, Hispanic, and minorities. The issue
in those neighborhoods, yes. But they're not walking up and down Park Avenue stopping and frisking people.
Well, that's not where the crime is. You police where crime is, and that's what Mayor Bloomberg and Kelly and Commissioner Kelly have done. This is at the demand of these local neighborhoods that want strict and strong law enforcement. I'm sure that Judge Scheinlin doesn't have these problems where she lives on the Upper West Side. And there's a different type of policing up there because there's a different type of crime up there. I think what Commissioner Kelly said yesterday is what matters. This is behavioral profiling. It's not racial profiling. When you go back and look at the original Supreme Court case from 1968, Terry versus Ohio, you had a police officer watching someone walk in front of a jewelry store for an hour, pacing, looking, and the Supreme Court said it was okay for that officer to go up and start asking questions after observing that person in front of that jewelry store, and whoopee-doo, there was a weapon in that person's belt. So the issue here is this is a very political issue, and people have a right to ask questions about stop and frisk. But the truth is, from a policing standpoint, this is good policing. And if you ask blacks and Hispanics and the victims in these neighborhoods, not their national organizations like the NAACP, which have an agenda that has nothing to do with protecting their own people in those neighborhoods. The people in those neighborhoods will tell you they want this and they like it.
Joe, across the river in Virginia, Governor Bob McDonnell and his wife, who, by the way, have gotten separate attorneys, are going to sit down. They're going to sit down and talk to prosecutors about questions surrounding these gifts from Star Scientific and all that. As you look at that, what do you see?
Well, the attorneys for each of them, not the governor and his wife. The governor and his wife will not be meeting with prosecutors, but the attorneys for each of them will be meeting with the prosecutors to lay out, according to published reports, what their defense of the acceptance of these gifts is, what their defense is each. And, of course, their attorneys will be interviewed separately, although the attorneys are talking to each other. So, I mean, the notion of that having any sort of significance is irrelevant at this point. I think the McDonald's have a very serious legal problem. I think this is at this point now where the lawyers are talking to the prosecutors because the prosecutors are pretty close to making decisions about whether or not to charge anybody. Clearly, Johnny Williams, the guy who ran the business of the Star Company, is cooperating. He's turned over all his business record. He's been interviewed and probably has testified before the grand jury. I would say that prosecutors must be pretty close to figuring out whether or not crimes have been committed. Because, under federal law, you can't take illegal gratuities, you can't take bribes. But although, in this case, Virginia's own disclosure laws are very murky and unenforced regularly. And so the real question is the federal government going to give the governor and his wife a pass because of Virginia state law being so murky? That's a very, very difficult question.
Very quickly, is it a defense if they say, my wife was doing this and I didn't know?
It is a defense if, in fact, the governor did not know.
Interesting. Okay.
And that would protect him. It wouldn't protect her.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you, Joe DiGenova. Always a pleasure.
You bet, guys.